audition. Before we begin, please check that the slide deck displayed is yours and that the clicker is working. For the presentation format today, you will have 10 minutes to present, and the time cards shown will be 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and 1 minute. Once the time is up, I will step up to interrupt and conclude the presentation. So today's entire presentation and the Q&A session will also be recorded for further feedback to the team. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Every bottle you build tells a story of traditions and progress. But in order to keep that story going, you need to change how you write the next chapter. Good afternoon. We are from Labubu Consulting, and we are here to future-proof Thai-based growth by achieving net zero and resilient supply chain. In order to do so, we will answer two key questions. How can we decarbonize upstream supply chain, and how can we scale packaging retrieval? ThaiBev is a market leader in beverage industry, and it is #1 beer player in Southeast Asia. To get that title, it needs to expand to over 90 countries over the last few years. But with great powers come great responsibilities, as it has emitted over 2.2 million tons of carbon dioxide in a year. So this might be fine for your company in the past, but the world is changing. Regulations has become much more stricter on carbon oversight, meaning that you will be taxed more on your carbon-related activities. Climate change are also threatening your supply chain every single day, and even consumers are moving toward a more sustainable companies. So in order to maintain your market leadership, it is urgent that ThaiBev accelerate their key decarbonization process and create an ecosystem resilience. But where exactly should you focus on? If we take a look at your current carbon footprint, we can see that you have already done an exceptional job on Scope 2 emissions, as you have used green utility contract and reduced down the carbon emissions. So you don't have to worry about that for now. As for Scope 1, this has the highest cost implication from taxes and direct costs. So this is also important for your company, but this is where you have the highest control. As for Scope 3, you might not have the highest cost implication, but the carbon emission from Scope 3 is almost double that of Scope 1. So it is also essential for your company to focus on for long term. Okay, we have known which scope to focus on. Now let's take a look at our value chain to see if there is any gap we could still fill in. First, we can skip over energy because it's Scope 2. Then we can look at production and logistics. And from the moment, we can see that your current initiative has already done a pretty great job with 5.2% year-on-year carbon reduction. This means that you will be able to reach net zero in Scope 1 by the end of 2040. So you don't have to worry. As for point of sale and consumptions, you've already addressed it in your product portfolio. So this leaves us with sourcing and collection, two value chains that leave clear gap for you to improve. For sourcing, more than 80% of total Scope 3 emissions are from this. And for collections, you can only collect 36% of PET bottles. So there you have it, two key questions that you need to answer. How can you decarbonize the upstream supply chain, and how can you scale with package retrieval? This will be your strategic blueprint, and we have already answered where we should focus on. My colleague will now talk about the next two key questions.
Let's go to the next two key questions. Let's first start with how to decarbonize the supply chain. So currently we will have this two strategy. With strategy 1, reach the sky, helping decarbonize the supply chain. So right now, as you can see in the Scope 3 supply chain, these are what is causing the emission, and we should find an area to focus on. Now we should cut out the ones with too low of impact, the ones that are out of our controls, and the one that ThaiBev already fully implemented, leaving us with two parts, the purchased goods and services and the end-of-life treatment. But the purchased goods and services has the most percentage in producing Scope 3, so it will be our main focus right now. Currently, these are what is producing the greenhouse gas in the purchased goods and services: agriculture, packaging, supplier energy use, logistic inbound, and processing, with high greenhouse gas coming from agriculture and packaging, and control from ThaiBev having high in agriculture and packaging. But we should focus on agriculture because right now, by changing the packaging, it has to adopt a new fully changed system wide one. So these are the strategy that we have came up with the agriculture, which is the high impact ones, and the feasible one is on the precision agriculture drone and help with the subsidizing of the farms. So currently, most of farms are in the medium size, with 65% of them in the sugarcane farm coming from medium-sized ones. Now, right now, these are a problem right now. There's still soil compaction, it's still labor-intensive, and it is inconsistent across farm. With drones, we solve all these problems with it being faster, scalable, and help reduce fertilizer by 45%. However, it still has these problems. It requires drone service provider, it has a high cost upfront, and it's dependent on the weather. But TypeF can come in and help remove some of these. For example, TypeF can become the provider of the service drone and help subsidize the cost with it gaining these benefits. So then how should TypeF bring the drone in? We have these partnership, joint venture, M&A, and in-house. We recommend partnership because it has fast and asset light, plus it's low risk. So we recommend TypeF partnership. And then so who should TypeF partner with? We recommend TypeF partnering with XAG because XAG has a partnership-friendly model, it's very Thailand-friendly, and also a trusted service provider. So XAG is a good partner for TypeF to have. But to scale TypeF, we find a place to start first. And right now, we recommend sugarcane farm because it's the most frequent and in the fertilizer use. Plus, it's easy to set up and it's already used by XAG. So we recommend starting with sugarcane farm. After deploying and seeing that it works, it could then diversify and scale up. By scaling up, we recommend going to cassava because it's very similar to sugarcane farm, and then later going to rice and other crops in the future. With this, we will help decarbonize some part of the agriculture supply chain. Now I'll pass it on to my colleagues.
So now let's move on to our second strategy, return and win. To start off, our first step is that we need to pinpoint out where our system leaks the most. And our collection rate is the clearest indicator. If the rate is high, it means that the recovery is already working. But if the rate is low, that's where the loop breaks. And as you can see, glass, aluminum, and papers are already have a high collection rate. But if you're looking at PET, you will see that there's only 36%. And that's the high impact area that we need to target next. But first, let's meet Sana, an on-to-go PET user. She's an office worker who lives and works in Bangkok. And here is her PET consumption journeys. So in the first step, she just grabbed a bottle of water, then she consumes it. Once she's done, she will just throw it right away. And usually, it's going to be the indefinite part of consumptions. And according to these behaviors, it just shows that the thing that drives disposal choice is convenience. So our next step is that we need to redesign the journeys so that the right actions become easiest and most natural. And to make it happen, we would like to introduce PET return kiosks, where our customers can return the used PET bottle within a second. And here is our execution plan. So in the first step, we would like to deploy our kiosk machines in a high traffic area, which is going to be like BTS, MRTs, or convenience stores. And then we need to ensure that our machines have clear instructions and it is easy and fast to use. And as our kiosk machines have limited capacities, so the collection is needed. But we want to do it in an efficient way. So instead of sending the trucks and collecting the plastic bottles in a fixed schedules, our kiosk machine have sensors which will trigger once already the capacity is nearly full. And by doing this, we can cut the unnecessary trips and make our operational more sustainable. In the last stage, we will just expand into the areas that have the high demands. So now, by doing these strategies, we only make returning the bottles feel more convenient, but still, people lack of an incentive to do so. And to solve that, we would like to include the lucky draws inside the kiosk machines. And this thing is quite simple of how it actually works. So when people return the bottles, the kiosk machines will pop up the QR code, and then users can scan and register. Once they're done with the register, they will get the result immediately whether to get the price or not get the price. And the example of the price is going to be like Starbucks cards or like the e-watches. And by implementing these strategies, we already incentivize people to return bottle more. And with the first and second strategies already in place, we already closed the major gaps of the value chains, bringing the time to the destinations. And now I pass the mic to my colleagues to justify more about financials and impact.
Thank you, Piasto. And first, let's talk about our two strategy. Now, with our combined strategy, we come with three North Star KPIs. First is 1.668 billion liters of water decrease and 822,000 tons of carbon emissions decrease, and also 510 million bottle collection incremental. All this is over the time span of 5 years. Now let's go to our capex with 33.2 million baht is in 2026, and also acquiring of 600,000 in OpEx in the first year. And to our implementation plan, first thing first, we will anchor with the XAG to capture our partnerships, and then we will launch the drone and the kiosk in parallel to improved efficiency for drone and also better incentivize more collection for Thai. And we will happily going through our risk mitigation in the Q&A part. And that's come to an end of our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you team for your presentation. We will now move into the 20 minutes Q&A session where the time cards will be shown at 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and 1 minute like usual. When the time's up, you will have 10 seconds to wrap up your response.
Please go to slide 9. You went way too fast, we couldn't follow it up for slide 9. What are you trying to say here? And let's start first with the value chain. Why did you break it down like this? Which value chain is it? Because Thailand is a huge company, many product lines, many countries.
Is it applicable for all the business units that they have?
Yeah.
So Thai business unit basically separated into 4 key areas. We have beverage, non-beverage, and then spirit, beer, non-beverage, and then food, right?
Yeah.
So the value chain we pulled from the major value chain for which means that we only talk about beverages and non-alcoholic beverages.
Okay. So basically, the beer, the water, all of that.
Yes.
So this is the supply chain you're looking at.
Yes.
Okay, keep going. Then why greenhouse gases show up, and then what are the key issues, where they come from?
So what we are trying to say here is that, as you can see, we talk about scope 1, scope 2, and 3 before, and we say that we don't have to really look into scope 2.
Yeah.
The reason that I want to show the deprioritization metrics in this slide, one is because I want to say that a lot of our initiatives are already answering a lot of questions. Major key steps are already taken by Tiger. So something are not done, they will need to be improved a lot anymore.
So production, logistics, that's scope 1, right?
Yes.
But you noted in previous slide that it's something to prioritize immediate operational efficiencies to capture direct cost savings. Are you looking into any of that, or are you saying that they're really doing good on their own?
So the point I'm trying to say in the last slide is that scope 1 and 3 are important.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do here are that what are their current initiatives? Are they already fixing what need to be fixed? And so we look at the value chain and we can say that in production and logistics, they have already implemented a lot of EVs, a lot of green utility contacts, a lot of things that's already answering the question. And this can actually be seen by the 5 to 12% year-on-year carbon reduction. So if you think about this, you will be able to reach net zero by 2040 in scope 1 if you keep up the same performance. That's what we are trying to say.
Okay, so you're justifying that. Let's focus on the suppliers and let's focus on the customers, because those are far out of their control and they're part of scope 3. In the long run, emissions that need to be reduced as well.
Yes.
Okay. But then you went very narrow into sourcing and collection. Sourcing is very specific, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but the collection is only on plastic bottles. But they have so many other, customers use a lot of other things: aluminum cans, glass bottles, all that.
Okay, I mean, I can answer that question. Like the reasons that we focus on plastic bottle, because as we put in on the stats slide, you can see that the collection rate for like those packagings is already high. So if you're focusing on that area, our impact would be going to be like really low. And also for the sourcing part is mainly from the farms. And the reason that we, even though like sourcing have 80% and collection have like 20% of machines, in the sourcing is have like the farm, which the emissions come from the soils, come from the plant around like only 70%, which is the thing that we cannot fixing. So that's why we need to focus on both sides.
And to add on to your question about other types of bottles like aluminum and glasses, for glass bottle, TIDEF is already collecting it at around 90-something% rate, and aluminum and everything else is pretty high too. However, for the plastic bottle, it's around 30%, making it much lower. So it's the part that we should focus on because the rest are doing pretty well.
On the sourcing, I'll let my fellow colleagues touch, but on collection, jump to slide 34, please. You showed some statistics that glass and aluminum already has high recycling at 97-63%. Can you walk me through what that means? Like, why is it so high based on your research? And then what's the real problem with plastics?
So like, I mean like from those packagings, it's like from the different type of customers. So for the gas and the aluminum is going to be mostly like the beers or the spirits, which those products are already selling like in restaurants, which means that the recovery process is quite easy. You can return it easy. But for the PETs, like when you go to 7-Elevens or the convenience stores, you grab a bottle of water and plastics. So you can see that the customers is quite different. And to return the PET bottle to come back to the recycling process is much harder.
I understand that glass aluminum is at the bars, the restaurants, and that maybe it's Thai Bevs or distributors come and collect it every time they send it over. But then glass and aluminum beer is also offered in 7-Eleven, often convenience stores. So how can they achieve such a high recycling rate?
To add on to it, so when they're collecting trash, they use trash cars, right? And when they come in, they compact everything in. And the recycling rate of aluminum is easier because when you come back in, you can pretty much go and reshape it. But for a PET, it's much harder because it's plastic, meaning that if it's contaminated or anything along those lines, it has to be remade or it will have a more like cost on recycling. So it's still pretty low. So right now the kiosk is to help solve it because it will see the quality of the bottle, and because Thai Bev already have the capacity to recycle the PET bottles with their heat technology.
I think to add on to that, I think that most people will, there's more people that buying water or plastic bottles more than alcohol beverage in general. So I believe that the more bottle there is in the whole market, then there is to our capability right now, then it is reasonable that we're at 36%.
My final question before I pass on is on the kiosk then. Because is this kiosk just going to accept Chan water bottles, or how is it going to do? Because there are other initiatives. The Amtuan also has a machine where you can put any bottle in. I'm sure that Coca-Cola, Namtip Water, all of that, they also have their initiatives. Seems like everyone's doing their own thing, even though it's all the same type of recovery process.
No, and like we can use our like others PET type of bottle because in the end it's still PETs. And our goal is that we want to receive the quality bottle so that we can recycle it better and reduce the cost from the recycling factory that we have. So basically we already have like 45 recycling factories, but the reasons that the recycling cost is high because the bottle quality is low. And by applying kiosks, even though the quality of the bottle is not as much, but the quality is like it's a high quality bottles which can reduce the recycling cost in the long term. But basically to answer your questions, we can let other company bottles to recycle. It's the same thing.
Okay. I have a question on slide 19. I think we are all trying to understand the strategy one on what you're trying to convince us on the direction that you're going to go for. Like at the end, you want to go for precision farming, right? But then like before that, what are you trying to like lead us to? Just want to understand the logic a little bit more.
So what I'm trying to lead everyone to is that currently like the Thai Bev Scope 3 emission, most of it are being caused by the purchased goods and services from their partners and raw material like suppliers. So the logic is that right now, once we realize that this is one of the biggest chunks in the Scope 3 emission, we move on to see what is actually like causing the Scope 3 emission within like the purchased goods and services, which are these parts. And for packaging, it's also a very interesting one, but the problem with that is that Thai Bev already have like their PET bottles as standards. So by changing the packaging that they use, or by changing everything, it has to reshape all Thai Bev's like products line in the future. Plus, the recycling factories is already made to be able to recycle these types of plastics. So we choose to focus on the horticulture, which is also another big part that is causing the greenhouse gas here.
And do you have any case study on using the drone fertilizer application?
So actually, let me move to this page. So right now, actually, like one of Thai Bev's So actually, like there are some farms already using the drone provider here that they already form a contract, and also some of like Thai Bev's partner are starting to implement the drone in, which is the biggest ones. The biggest farm is starting to implement the drone in the mid-pole one, but the ones that we are focusing on are more mid-pole. Yes.
They're supplying to Thai Bev.
Yep. But we're focusing on the medium-sized ones because the medium-sized ones are what makes up most of Thai Bev's part worker, and it is what they don't have drones yet.
Why did you mention XAG and Farm Inno? What are those?
Sorry, how can you please repeat?
You mentioned two brands, XAG and then Farm Inno Thailand. What are these two companies and how they involved in your strategy?
So the Farm Inno company is a company that actually produces horticulture in Thailand already. So it's a farm. Then XAG is the drone provider. So it's just show that they already have a partnership in Thailand, like that they're willing to make partnerships in Thailand.
What's Farm Inno again?
It's a farm in Thailand.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's a company owned by CP, and they are a technology enabler, and they sell drones to farms. So, are you sure that you can work with them? Are they a competitor? Will they actually work with the Thai-based system, given that they're probably fully occupied with CP's own systems?
I believe that the XAG will be able to work with the type of system because right now they're in the phase that they're actually moving on to several farms in several countries, and by coming to Thailand, they'll be able to help expand their place in Thailand because like even their service center are in Thailand, which they're building there first. So I think that Thailand would be a strategic direction for the XAG.
Who's paying for all these drones, and how are you going to work with them, given there's so many, so many suppliers, all at different sizes, different maturity levels?
We will subsidize the drone spraying system. Well, we partnership with XAG, and when it comes to to our supplier farms, right? And then we tell them that if you want to adopt the XAG drone with us, we will help with the drone subscription service for 15%, and then increasing over the years by the time that they are adapting to the farms and already seeing the results.
So bring us the numbers. I think you only invested 20 million baht or even less on the drone technology.
Yes.
Go to the waterfall shot, please.
Yes.
Maybe not this detail.
No.
Go back to the waterfall shot.
Waterfall chart. Wait. Yes.
Oh, only 7.2 million. Is that the subsidy or what is it?
Yes, this is 15% subsidy in the first year. When we do you want me to go through the our
Maybe, but okay. First I just look at the two big buckets: 7 million for drone spraying subsidies and 24 million for setting up kiosks in malls.
Yes.
Are you sure that you want to spend 3 times more on the recycling campaign versus something that's gonna really improve your company in the long run?
I believe that when we introduce drone to first of all, let me run you through our implementation timeline. You can look at our drone service that comes after two quarters, and we believe that in the time span of 2 quarters, that we will start piloting with a small segment of the farm, and therefore then we would not pay a lot of money in the first year because we want them to get familiar with the technology and also train the personnel first before we put in a lot of capital into investment.
How much does a package cost? Not just the drone itself, but the training and the licenses related to it.
Well, the drone.
Just rough numbers, fine. What's your assumption?
Well, I believe that the drone. Well, yeah, the drone itself costs around 80 baht per ride. If we use 80 baht per ride as an average, and then we subsidize 15% of that.
Who's paying this 80 baht to who?
The farmer will be paying 80 baht to XAG, and then we will subsidize 15% of 80 baht to help the farmer paying for XAG.
Would love to understand how you view on the scalability of both strategies.
Okay, I believe that when we are trying to when we are scaling this strategy for strategy 1, we are seeing that when we increase the number of rides that we partnership with and help them with the subsidies, we see that we not only that we reduce the carbon emissions from these farms, And we also see that we could reduce the cost of the cost of making the crops itself. To put you in perspective, we can reduce the fertilizer use by almost 50%, and we will reduce this water use by almost 80%.
What do you see would be some of the downsides of this strategy?
One of the downsides is that it doesn't really have a direct financial impact, but it's actually a long-term financial impact for the drone strategy. So what we're doing is we're investing in the technology and it's helping us with the partnership. We have the TIDEF association with the farmers, that is with our partnership with regulations and with the technology that they use. And with this, it's a way that we could ensure that right now, in the future, we will be able to get the crops that we want more effectively and in the numbers that we want.
And so for the second strategies, it's also like, so one of our strategies focus on the long-term cost savings. So for the kiosks, our main risk is that we cannot collect that much of the plastic bottles, but in the long term, if we can change the people behaviors and we can expand more kiosks, the quality of the plastic bottle will be increased, and also the quality of plastic bottle is like in the 99% conditions, which in the long term, if this being successful, we make our recycling process save carbon significantly.
I have a question. Can we switch a little bit? I really wanted to ask this. Who owns the lands that they're spraying these fertilizers?
The lands, it's the farmer-owned ones.
Okay, and so currently what are farmers using, manual or drone?
So for the bigger farms, some of them are starting to use drones, but for the medium-sized one, many of them are still using tractors.
Okay, and how do you plan to implement these drones to like the ones that are using manual?
So right now there's a labor shortage because right now there's a growing society in the farming industry. Plus, when they're spraying, it takes a lot of time. So what we're planning to do is that we're planning to like show that hey, the bigger farms are starting to use this, but right now we're giving you the chance to use this in the more medium-sized farm, so you can use us and help save costs on fertilizers.
But then why do they need to change?
I think the reason that it should change is because it could help save costs in the long run.
No, it's not that why, they should change, but why should they change?
So basically, by implementing these strategies, the farming will be more effective. So when you do the manuals, you will like step on the crops, and many crops will be dying. And a lot of these farmers, like mid-size and also the small size, really want to reach to these technologies. But the key thing is that they lack of money. And the thing that we try to do is that we trying to help them be able to use these technologies. And the benefits for them is that they can reduce the manual labors, and also they can have more efficient farming so that they can produce more crops to us, which means that they can generate more revenues. So basically, it's bad for both sides. We can get more supplies from our suppliers.
Okay, I understand that, but then like how is the drone going to go to these farmers?
Yeah.
How does it happen?
Especially at a larger scale.
So right now, because like we have the partnerships with these companies, we will be the ones like helping them with the transportation, because we have a logistics system that is already like around Thailand.
But then the logistics system is different, right? Logistics to the farmland and logistics to the mom and pop shop. It's a totally different type of logistics. The logistics in the farmland is like hundreds of kilometers in the middle of nowhere, and the logistics in a mom and pop is like in the city where it's more established, right? Okay, that's one. But I wanted to understand like how would these drones even reach these like farmlands? How are you even going to deploy them, or who's going to help them deploy? Who's going to teach the farmers how to use the drones?
Okay, first to answer the first question, to deploy them. So right now, like for example, in Kamphaeng, right, Thailand have their factory there, so you can keep the drone there, and it is on an area that is like more on the side where they're doing farming, so they can actually like bring the drone.
Thailand doesn't do farming.
No, I mean like the beer factory. They have a beer factory like that is very large.
But then they have very strict standards on what could be kept on the factory and what could not be kept, and it's a totally different. Food and beverage, it doesn't mix with chemicals that is used on agricultural farmland directly, right? So I just wanted to understand, like, okay, maybe aside that, I wanted to know, how would you train these farmers how to use a drone? Are they using the drone, or is someone flying the drone?
There's actually someone flying a drone. It's not them using it. Like,
What about the cost?
the cost
It
is
is not per ride, right?
no, the cost is more on the like So it's more like the mapping of the farm, actually.
Yeah, but then like you need someone to fly the drone every single time, right, to spray the fertilizers. How is the cost? How are the farmers going to, bear the cost of every time the drone going up and flying?
Okay. First of all, let's do the first thing first. That the XHG will provide the system and also will help us train the farmers. That's why we already have budget set up for the training. And when you ask the cost of droning, I believe that once we train the drone, the farmers how to fly the drone, and the system is already in place, I don't think that there will be much of a cost that will incur after the farmers know how to set up and fly the drone, and there will be like the system set up by the XHG Consulting.
To add on, the drone actually like helps maps out the area. So when going to the same place, it would be actually easier for them to use the drone compared to like the first time the drone going there. And plus, it's lower than the labor cost that they have to get several people to spray it every day for many days to fight for the fertilizer.
Okay, thank you once again, team. The results and feedback will be distributed via email within this week. Have a great rest of your day.